Hey everybody, welcome to Wetlands, National Wetlands Day. And we just thought today might be a pretty good day to talk a little bit about the importance of wetlands and what they do for us and what we can do for them, but basically creating that sponge. Elkhart County Soil and Water was glad to have Matt Meersman, our director of the St. Joe River Basin Commission, here with us, and Matt can shed some light on wetlands as well.
Thanks, Jim. There's been a lot of attention around wetlands lately, and I've been really excited to kind of share what I've been learning about wetlands through some of the studying that we've been doing in the watershed. And I think I always like to start, people, if anything, they think about wetlands like, isn't that where the cattails are? Some like marshy spot, some, good for snakes and mosquitoes and some other critters that we probably, don't want. And there's no question that wetlands have significant ecological value, really important for habitat and all that kind of stuff. But what we really get excited about is the ability of wetlands to help prevent floods and the economic value they bring. They filter out sediment that we would typically have to dig out of our ditches to keep things clean. So, you mentioned a sponge, and that's kind of what we like to think of them as, a sponge out there on the landscape that can soak up water. Turns out that in the St. Joe Basin, we've lost a lot of the wetlands that we used to have. And we say we lost them, they didn't take it off and run somewhere. We filled them or we drained them. And some of those wetlands have become some of our most productive ag ground. And some of those wetlands are where is now roads in development. So, we haven't lost them for no reason. It was part of, developing. And at some point, though, we realized that there's a consequence to those loss of wetlands. Mm-hmm. And what's been fascinating is as we look throughout the watershed, so when I say watershed, we're just talking all the land that drains to the St. Joe. When we look at all that land that's drained to the St. Joe, there isn't consistent wetland loss across the board. So some of our streams have lost more wetlands than others. Okay. And I think most significant here in Elkhart County are two examples I found. If you look at all the land that drains to Balgo Creek, that land's lost 91% of its wetlands.
Which a lot of that's on our west side of our county.
A lot of drainage.
Yep.
A lot of productive ag ground.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've ever been out to Balgo Creek County Park or you've been out to Ferretti Balgo Park, exactly, or Balgo Bay after a big rain event, it's wild. It's like chocolate milk and it's a torrent coming down when we get big rains. Now, on the other hand, if you go on the north side of the river and look at Christiana Creek, and you look at all the land that's drained to Christiana Creek, we've only lost 17% of the wetlands in Christiana Creek. Get a big rainstorm in Christiana Creek, maybe it goes up an inch, maybe 2 inches, still pretty clear. So you can see the impact of those sponges out there on the landscape, filtering and storing that water. And what's nice is, for one, we don't get the water when we don't want it in the spring when it's already high. But they also act to slowly release water through the season. So during the growing season, when fish need some water in the stream in late July, there's still water there. So some really important functions that we like to.
Nice. So do you have any idea how many acres are in wetlands, in Elkhart County or in a river basin now?
I do. In the St. Joe River Basin as a whole, there's about 315,000 acres of wetlands that are on the landscape that we.
So that would be like 315,000 acres
of sponges.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what they're working like. And in Elkhart County, we've got, we got 12,654 acres of wetlands still. That's approximation. I think that's one of the kind of interesting things is you really got to get out into the field to determine exactly where the wetlands are. We throw out these numbers, 315,000 acres, and that's based on approximations. We kind of have a general sense of where they are, but really to know where they are, you kind of got to get out in the field.
And just to give everybody an idea, all of our water is going to Lake Michigan.
That's right.
And so, we're trying to do so these kind of act as a pre-treatment type activity that we would normally do. It's nature's BMP.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that it becomes really important for some of our lake property owners, people who like to recreate on lakes. And we've got a number of reservoirs in the St. Joe River and the Elkhart River, and those reservoirs end up filling up with sediment. And a lot of that has to do with removing the filters that are out there. And so the more filters we can get there on the landscape, the less often we may have to do dredging on our lakes.
Mm-hmm. So not only is wetland important as how we keep those clean, I mean, we in Elkhart County started the swamp program, which kind of has a unique name in itself as swamp. That's what we kind of refer to as, wetlands, but it's that stormwater management program we'd started, and basically it was to put out cover crops as that pre-treatment, kind of our self-seeded pre-treatment area, so that we can retain water, retain the nutrients, and keep them all in sight to help infiltrate. And basically that's what the wetlands are doing.
It's pretty incredible, really, the work that's being done by the conservation districts across the basin in the way of agricultural best management practices are really trying to help make up for some of the functionality that we lost by turning these into working lands. I mean, in order to make productive ag ground out of what was a wetland, we've got to employ drainage, we've got to dig some ditches and stuff, and so we would lose all that functionality when we start bringing cover crops, no-till, controlled tile drainage. We start bringing some of these practices in, we're able to reclaim some of the benefits that those wetlands would have served without losing the productivity of the ground. So, I mean, we're basically trying to create some storage, to create some way to utilize the nutrients that we've got there and not send it on to Lake Michigan, like you said.
So the wetlands don't necessarily always have to stay at that one spot, correct? I mean,
it can change over time.
We could change them, we could mitigate.
That's right. That's important. I think in my generation, kind of growing up, I always assumed wetlands were protected. I always just kind of thought, oh, wetlands, you can't mess with those. And in reality, there's only certain wetlands that are protected. And what's interesting is the level of protection that they have. It's not to say you can't drain one or you can't fill one. It's that if we're going to do that, you may have to create some storage somewhere else. You're going to have to mitigate for that. And that's understandable. And some of the data that we've been collecting is actually really helpful for trying to make sure that if we lose a wetland that's really important for floodwater storage, say, that we want to make sure that the wetland that we recreate also can serve that floodwater storage function.
Well, we deal in Elkhart County and all the counties around, we have a Rule 5, which, we get plans in and we, look over the erosion control piece of that. And we get a lot of sites in that have wetlands on them that we have to, protect and do that. But we also know that we can't push more water on to somebody else, that wasn't just naturally occurring. So, I mean, that's part of the, reason we have wetlands as well, I think.
And I think that's part of the reason there's regulations around them. That's the reason that we are requiring mitigation and protecting them is understanding that wetland, although it's on your property, and if you drain it, it's going to have an impact on
someone else. Exactly. And so as we navigate through a lot of the stuff, it comes down to that checks and balance of our natural area, kind of.
Exactly.